that extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
All right, welcome to another episode Behind the Gear, and today we are sitting with Topher Scott, and I obviously, full disclosure here, I messed up your name in the first one because I called you Scott Topher, but you've got the sickest name for just a hockey nickname right off the bat. Like, there's no messing that up. It's just Topher, like, it's perfect. Were your parents ahead of the curve on naming you, or what?
I think my parents are just weird. I don't know. I don't know any other Topher. Actually, I do know another Topher, a guy named Topher Bavis, who actually played hockey at UMass and is coaching out in the Boston area right now. A good guy, but it takes a couple times sometimes, a little bit of a double take when I introduce myself to people. They're like, "Huh? What the hell are you talking about?"
I like it. It's original. Right. It's good. But Scott, obviously, great hockey background. Played Ivy League at Cornell, and then obviously went on to play some professional hockey after that, and now kind of given back and kind of found a niche as far as I'm always interested to know in how this all happens, but kind of creating your life around hockey, but also creating a job for yourself in hockey. I know you coach a little bit as well, and obviously with the Hockey Think Tank podcast and a lot of the other stuff that you're doing online is a great resource for parents and players and coaches and stuff out there to kind of take a look. But before we got on here, I was telling you I've been listening to your podcast and stuff, and I like. You got Jeff's a great wingman for you. You guys kind of do a nice job of like getting some of the hockey slang in there, having some fun with it, some good jokes, and but also getting to the point and really kind of being serious about stuff where a lot of times if you're at the rink talking to a coach or talking to another parent, you're not going to get sometimes that, no, this is really what it's like, and this is more on you, or this is on you, or your son or daughter should be at this stage, or whatever it is. And I think you guys do a good job of kind of being honest about the process. And I think the process, for some parents, want it to be really, really, really fast, but let's be honest, the process starts at 2-3 years old and goes for however long it goes for, right? So it's definitely a journey, man. But how did you get into? We'll get back to your kind of playing, but how did you get into doing this whole, like, the podcasting and the online piece? How did that all kind of come about?
Yeah, so I spent 6 years as a Division I assistant coach. I spent 1 year getting my grad as a grad assistant in Miami of Ohio, and then 5 years as an assistant at Cornell, and just kind of made a life decision. Spent over 200 days a year on the road recruiting. My wife and I were getting ready to start a family and stuff like that, so just decided to make a little bit of a life change to be a little bit more present at home. And just from my time recruiting at Cornell, you get to meet a lot of people, meet a lot of parents, you get to know the process a little bit, and it really felt like there was a need in youth hockey for just parent and coach education. I think those are two things that are really, really important for all of our kids that aspire to get to the higher levels, but also for the families and kids that just want to have a good time and a good experience too. So I kind of got into the youth hockey game as a midget coach after that, and really realized that there was a need for parent and coach education. So got together with a couple buddies, and we had kind of talked just every couple of weeks or so, just professional development. How can we get better? Just talking hockey and stuff. And we decided to start a website and things like that. And those two guys have gone on to bigger and better things, both working in the NHL right now. And I just kind of took the bull by the horns and didn't know where it was going to lead, but now it's led to a website, a podcast, and a conference, and a bunch of other different stuff. So it's all centered around just making the hockey game better by educating and inspiring as many people as we can.
No, that's awesome, man. And because I'm not the most polished host, we also have Kevin Galerno with us as well. And Kevin's been on before. But
I'm just here to learn something anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. But Kevin, and it's funny you say that, because Kevin and I do this a lot. Obviously, we work together, so we get a chance to talk a lot about different things. And you see a highlight in the NHL when the NHL was on, and you're like, oh, how do they do that? Let's check this out. Let's go on the ice and try it out, or break it down. Or something happens in the media, and you're like, oh man, this could have been negated by if they had to spirit it off here. And you kind of have those conversations, but I find a lot of times when you're working from home or you're starting out your own thing, you miss those opportunities to talk to other people in the field. So having a group around you, and real quick, if you don't mind naming some of those guys, because I know Narado's one of your boys as well, and had him on the podcast, he was awesome, man. He was he's and I consider myself a little bit like this, and Kev is as well, but a bit of a hockey skills nerd. Like he can sit and talk skills for like hours, and for most people, like, oh my god, it's like talking about Star Trek. But he's one of those guys who's a great guy to talk hockey about. He's up to date with what's going on. But who are some of the other guys that you've got kind of surrounding you that kind of bounce things off of?
sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the nice things about having the opportunity to coach at the Division I level is a big part of your job is recruiting. And a big part of recruiting is just forming relationships with anybody and everybody that you can. So I've been able to meet and interact with a ton of just unbelievable hockey people, but some that are like people that I spoke to a lot. I mentioned, Brandon Naurato and Brian Kane were the two guys where we would talk to each other, every couple of weeks, once a month or so back in the day, just to kind of professional development. And when I left coaching at Cornell, we all got together one day in Detroit at the TPH offices right there in Michigan. And just kind of, this was the brainchild of that conversation, what I have going on with the hockey think tank right now. And, so getting the chance to talk to Brandon and Brian Kane from Prodigy Hockey, those two are incredible. And then just other people that have kind of come through. We have now people are doing webinars for us, like Alyssa Gilardi, who, in my opinion, is one of the top hockey minds in women's hockey. She does most of her work in the Carolina area. That's where she grew up. Mike Garman, who's a goalie coach with the Chicago Steel. So he's somebody that, I do a ton of work with and have talked to on a bunch of different occasions. He's a Cornell guy as well. So just guys like that, that do a fantastic job of just challenging me and just collaborating. And one of the things when you don't work for an actual team, people want to collaborate with you a little bit more too. Yeah. And they're willing to share some of their secrets too, So, yeah. No, it's been fun. I mean, just talking hockey with people and learning and getting better. That's what it's all about. And it's been great perspective for me to be able to do that.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Backtracking a little bit here. So how did you end up at Cornell? Obviously, an awesome school, a great hockey program and an Ivy League to boot. But for you, kind of minor hockey, obviously you played your minor hockey where, and then where did you end up playing junior in order to get or was it high school hockey or junior hockey for you? I think it was junior actually for you, but to get that opportunity to go to Cornell?
Yeah, I had just a crazy path to get there. That's for sure. So I played. I was lucky enough to play in the USHL for the Chicago Steel, and I grew up in Chicago, so I was able to live at home, play junior hockey, and that's where I played before I got to Cornell. But my path is a little crazy, and that's why the craziness of youth hockey and slowing things down for me. Like I have a personal connection to it because my first year junior hockey was when I was 15 years old. Wow. And was the dumbest thing I ever could have done looking back now. Like I legit lost, like I like to think of myself as one of the most passionate hockey people out there. And after that year, I had zero passion for hockey. I was too young. It was too much. And it was just one of the hardest years that I've ever had. Looking back at it now, it's a great learning experience, but it could have sunk me and buried me had I not had amazing parents and friends and positive atmosphere and environment that I kind of grew up in. But yeah, 15 years old, played junior hockey in Chicago, had just an awful year. The next year got a little bit better. And then my grade 12 year, right before I was hopefully going to go into college, had a fantastic start to the season. I led our USHL preseason tournament in scoring, was getting talked to by all the schools that I ever dreamt of going to and stuff. And then first game of the year, boom, tore my ACL, was out for the year.
No way.
And yeah, none of the schools ended up. There was one school actually that called back after that because I'm 5'4",
sure.
So it's not like people were banging down my door to begin with. And so that was again, another one of those just really tough experiences. But looking back at it, I would have ended up at Cornell had that not have happened. And who knows where my path would have went. But ended up working out pretty well. And those tough experiences ended up being a blessing in disguise for me because ultimately it led me to where I am today.
So you basically missed probably almost that entire season then, right? For with that torn ACL, with that torn ACL, you missed that whole season, right? Your third season at junior.
I came back towards the end. We were in a little bit of a playoff run, and I kind of pushed it probably a little bit too much. But at the end of the day, I had to get back and play in the playoff run and stuff, and so luckily I didn't hurt myself again. But I got a few games in that year.
There you go.
One thing you mentioned there that I think is really important is, and we'll go back to your story, but you're saying, you played junior at 15 years old and it in the long run, it helped, but was one of the worst things. If you could go back, maybe you wouldn't do it. It was a bad decision. And cause I think it happens so much now that kids are they get drafted and they need to play in the O. or they need to play in the USHL right away, and if they don't do that, they need to play in junior B. But sometimes it's okay playing, going back to play minor hockey, whether it's major, midget, or whatever, because you get more playing time. You're not around 19, 20-year-olds as early, and everything that comes with that. And it's you don't hear that very often from guys that are like, what, maybe it wasn't the best decision for me. And it's different for everybody. Some guys it is important to go to junior right away, but I like hearing that sometimes it's not always the best decision or the right decision for some people, because that's the case definitely here in Ontario with the OHL and junior B and stuff.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you're seeing. I mean, it's obviously huge up in Ontario, and it's getting to be very similar in the States with the USHL. With the draft being at the age it is, everybody puts all their stock in a minor midget year, right? That 15U, 16U year down here. And then after that, it's like there's that gap. It's like, okay, you have this really, really, really important minor midget year, and then you have junior hockey. But there's a lot of kids that need that middle year or two before you get there. And I think it's maybe a status or an ego thing, because it's similar here. Like 18U hockey, midget major hockey is almost looked at as an afterthought here in the States, which is kind of similar to how it is up in Ontario. But at the end of the day, it's an absolutely necessary level for a ton of players. And so College Hockey Inc., which does a lot of research and does a lot of promoting for college hockey, they just came out with a study just the other day showing how important 18U, that age is for so many of the players that end up playing Division I hockey. And it's just crazy. It's like I said, maybe an ego thing, maybe a status thing, where it's like if I'm playing junior hockey or prep school or whatever, people are going to think I'm better. At the end of the day, like, if it's not the right fit for your development, which most of the time it isn't, if you're trying to rush it, then you just got to put your ego in check and say, hey, what's best for my development? What's best for my kid's development? And do that.
And that's where I think a lot of times too, it's up to the parents to step in there a little bit, because it's hard for parents when you're trying to keep up with the Joneses a little bit, that are going to play junior. Their kids, maybe he's 6 foot and he's a little more developed and he's going on to play junior, and you feel like, oh man, my little Johnny's got to get there. But it's hard for parents to sit there and say, you know what, no, we're going to stay home. You're going to live at home another year, get your schooling down, play midget, and we're going to develop. We'll work on skills. We'll get you a good trainer to work out, things like that. And to your point, get more prepared for that next year and maybe have more of an impact that following year, right? I think it's hard on both the player and the parents to come to that realization and make that decision.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's weird, especially in the social media age. I mean, everybody, I like to joke, like, kids just want to commit to places just so they can put it up on Instagram or Twitter.
Totally.
It's just like that one day of excitement of everybody telling you congratulations and all that kind of stuff for committing to a school or a junior team or a prep school or whatever. It's very alive and real.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So after that ACL kind of, hurt your leg, obviously missed most of the season, did you go back then for basically the year after grade 12? So that 18-year-old year, you went back to and played junior, I'm assuming, one more year.
Yeah. So I took one more year after that and played. And again, like for junior hockey too, I think just the experience of playing in junior hockey, I always felt, and you guys probably say similar things, like every year you feel like you're a little bit better. Every year you feel like you're a little bit more mature. Every year is good. And so I think that's one of the beauties for being able to play junior hockey is you can play until you're 20.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go to college, you're going in as a bigger, stronger, and most importantly, more mature, more of a leader. Like I encourage every kid to play 2 years of junior hockey, at least, because it's really good to have the experience of being a follower, learn how to be a rookie, learn how to earn your way, all that kind of stuff in your first year. And then just as importantly, it's important to learn how to be a leader that next year and be one of the older players on the team and have that responsibility and holding people accountable and things like that. So, it's a marathon. And that last year that I had of junior hockey, being able to be the captain of the team, I had a fantastic coach, a guy named Will Nickel, who's now the director of player development for Vegas. So him and I got really close that year. And I would imagine that a lot of the reason I wanted to get into coaching was because of the things that I learned from him. So just being able to kind of marinate I'm sure you guys have use that word, like just being able to marinate and become a little bit more mature and all that kind of stuff, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all that kind of stuff. It's always good for you. Whether you're going from junior to pro hockey, junior to college hockey, just you want to be ready.
No, that's great. And Will's a great guy, man. He, I ended up getting to know him in Washington because he was in Washington before he went over to Vegas. And what an awesome guy, man. Like just, really, really good guy. Passionate about what he does, cared about the kids. Like even at that level, he was working a lot with the prospects and stuff. And, really, really, it was awesome. He was a great guy. So I can see a guy like that having a nice impact on a lot of the guys that played for him for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you a good Will Nichols story here. So he's this is one of my this was like incredible. So our team, like we were a really good team that year. It was his first year as a head coach. I had him as an assistant coach before that. But just one of those guys who's like really just about like the relationship side. And like I said, him and I got really tight that year. We still keep in touch to this day. And he brings me into the office one day and he goes, we weren't playing well as a team. He goes, we need a little kick in the butt right now. I'm like, yeah, I think you're right. He's like, I'm going to absolutely blast you in front of the entire team. I'm just letting you know right now. You kind of deserve it. You don't deserve it that much, but you deserve it. You need to be playing better, but the whole team as a whole needs to be playing better. So I'm going to blast you in front of your teammates, and I need you to go out and have the best practice you've ever had. I need you to maintain a positive attitude, and I need you to just be a leader and just kind of go out and do your thing right now. So he like didn't want to yell at the team, so he kind of used me as a kind of like not a scapegoat because that's not the right word, but he used me as like a vehicle to get his message across to the team. And then as the captain, he was like, "How you act is going to be how our team is going to react." So it's just like such a coaching, just incredible thing that I look back on now, and you realize like those kinds of things are why people like that are so good at what they do, and obviously it's translated with him getting the nice jobs that he's got in Washington and Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome, man.
That's great.
Did you go in after that, like practice and say like, hey coach, like maybe like you didn't have to go so hard on me? Like, man, did you really mean all those things you said?
I don't even remember. I remember he gave it to me pretty good in front of the team. I do remember that. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it worked. So our team won the Eastern Division Championship that year, the first time in franchise history we ever did it. And, he's just one of those guys, just created a fantastic culture of the guys in the room. It was a lot of fun to play that year.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And then Cornell, what was it like going to Cornell? Because then the thing that I find with going from junior to college is you go from being the captain, the guy that everyone's leaning on, you're going to play big minutes and special teams and things like that. And then it doesn't always happen the same in college. Now you're going back to that rookie, to that freshman, to the starting out. Everything's new, school's new. You're trying to figure out your way. What was it like when you got to Cornell, coming out of kind of being, winning and being being the captain and stuff like that? How big was that transition for you going from junior to college?
Honestly, it was incredible. I mean, Cornell, you talk about rookies, veterans, all that kind of stuff. Like that's not any part of the culture there. So like legitimately my first day on campus, so we get there, we're moving into our dorms. I had 6 hockey players come. I didn't carry a bag or a box up to my room or unpack any of my stuff. My teammates did that before I ever, I shook their hands. They're like, all right, where are we going? I'll go unpack.
That's awesome.
And so like the leadership we had within our team and the culture, I mean, it was awesome. It was incredible. We made it to the Elite 8 that year. We lost in overtime to Minnesota to go to the Frozen Four. And I mean, it's one of those groups that you still keep in touch with a ton of the guys that were on that team today. Just one of those types of teams. And, it's just incredible leadership, incredible group of guys. And the other thing too, is like our coach is you don't have to pay your dues if you earn a spot on the team.
Yeah.
So as a freshman, if you have earned a spot on the power play, then you're going to play on the power play. You don't have to, bide your time on the bench and watch and see how the team plays. Like that's not how it operated there. So I luckily was able to play on the power play that year. We actually had the number 1 power play in the country, thanks to Matt Molson, who can pretty much score at will.
That's amazing, eh?
And so for me, like I couldn't have asked for a better experience coming in. It was a great education, but most importantly, like the hockey experience. We sell out every game there, and it's just an incredible group of guys, and we won. So it's always a lot more fun when you win.
Oh, that's great, man. Now on the other side of college coin, because a lot of programs aren't run like that. A lot of programs, you do have your pecking order. You do have coaches telling you, well, buddy, you just got to pay, you're a rookie, you're a freshman, you just got to kind of pay your dues a little bit. And there are two different programs. But what I want to ask you is, Cornell sounds like a very unique situation. Not that other schools aren't like this. Some of them I guarantee are, but that culture didn't just happen randomly because you had one good guy or a couple good guys. That culture has been passed down from program or from year to year to year, where you come in, like when you came in as a freshman, that was your experience. Well, what did you do as a sophomore and a junior and a senior? You went and helped the guys move in. You went and made sure everyone felt a part of the team and the culture. You know what I mean? So where did that all begin? Like when you look at that program now as kind of an older gentleman now, as far as being out of the game and having kids of your own, when you look at the culture that was created there, how was that created? Who spearheaded that? What was, how did that continue to go on for years?
Yeah, it all starts with the recruiting, in my opinion. You have to recruit good people from good families. And we had a lot of good people and a lot of good families. And that's something you don't really understand as a player. But then when you get into the coaching side of it and you understand that now you're the one that's maintaining and building the culture kind of from up top, and you understand that it's all about the people. I mean, one of the things when I go around and I do team building with different teams, I say, okay, everybody raise your hand if you want a championship. So typically a lot of the people raise their hands, and I go, okay, keep your hand up if that team was the closest team you've ever been on. And everybody keeps their hand up.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of that has to do with the culture in the room and the character, the types of kids. But also, like, we did a lot of work on culture too. We would do things all the time where, once a week, one person from every class had to do something together, whether it was go for lunch, go golfing, whatever, just go see a movie, play video games. I mean, you had to do something. And then the next week you had to switch. And now it was somebody different from different classes that were going off to do something. We did a lot of bonding off the ice. I mean, just stuff from the coaches that we would do, stuff where the coaches weren't involved, where we were having a good time that we would do. And it just created a lot of culture, put a lot of work into it. But at the end of the day, like, to answer your question, it all comes back to recruiting and the types of kids that you bring within your environment, and the types of families too, because the parents have a big effect on that too.
It's great, man. And the fact that, you're right, you get good people involved and you got a good culture that already to start, you kind of have to follow that lead basically, right? So when you do become an older player, a freshman to sophomore to junior to senior, it's just how you grew up there. It's what you know, it's how you run things. It's how things are done. And I think it's awesome, man. And have you guys, in your 4 years there, did you have any times where there were some guys that came in and didn't quite fit that culture? And if so, what happened to them? Did they end up molding into it and kind of, okay, I get it? Or did some of them kind of weed themselves out of that program?
Yeah, we had 1 year where we didn't do very well. And it was because one or two kids didn't buy in. And it just made the room not a very good room, yeah. And so it's something, those two kids, only, I shouldn't say two, mostly one kid, he was gone after that year.
Yeah.
And the next year was much better from a cultural standpoint. And that's the one thing about building a team, man. It's just like one bad apple can spoil a bunch. That's
so
all it
true,
takes.
Right?
One
yeah.
bad parent and a parent group can spoil a whole bunch. And that's not just in youth hockey. That's in college hockey too. Even pro hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, if the parents are around, which some parents have the luxury of doing, I mean, it can be tough. And so you have to work. That's why I go back to recruiting, making sure you get the right people within your program is so important.
Well, being a part of an unreal program like that, because aside from the wins and losses, I love the fact that you guys are so tight and that culture was passed down from, I'm sure, the coaching staff to you guys as upperclassmen down to the freshmen and to recruiting, to your point. But when you were out recruiting, I mean, obviously you've had a ton of experience with this through your own playing experience, but also as a recruiter, as a college assistant coach, which if anyone out there doesn't know, a college assistant coach is a massive part of the skill development and practice planning and all that stuff. But one of the big roles of a college assistant coach is recruiting and building that class for next year and the year after. So for you, when you were out recruiting, talking to parents, talking to families, and obviously you're talking, let's say John's playing on X team, you're out watching him because he's a good player, he's got good points, you've heard about him. What are you looking at? What are you looking for? And how much digging are you doing before you would ever commit to a kid like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say 90% of my job is done before I even get to the rink. And so, yeah, you have to find out those kinds of things. And for us, coaching at an Ivy League school, too, there's only a certain amount of kids that can get in from an academic standpoint.
Yeah.
So getting a chance to speak to the coaches and the families to get their grades and stuff. So when we're watching a game, we're not necessarily watching everybody that's out on the ice. We're breaking it down to maybe 3 or 4 players, because you're breaking it down from an academic standpoint. Then you're asking the coaches who their top players are. And so at the end of the day, you might be watching 1 or 2 kids on the ice at a time. But the things that we look for in players, and it's funny because just like as a player, you get better as a recruiter and as a scout too. So I was a much better scout in year 5 than I was in year 1,
Sure.
just based upon the experience of it. And so if I look back now, because now I'm 4 or 5 years out of it now, and if you break it down to just 3 really simple things, I think you have to have hockey sense. You have to be able to make plays and see the ice. You have to have a competitiveness to yourself, and you have to be coachable. Those are 3 things when you get down to the nitty gritty that make great players. So the hockey sense, you can kind of see you're making plays, all that kind of stuff. You can see if they've scored points based on looking at the stats. The competitiveness, you can see that pretty well. How much do they want to win puck battles, win puck races? How passionate are they about the game? Competitiveness comes out in different ways. It's not necessarily just gritting your teeth and, being physical and all that kind of stuff, but just kind of showing an overall passion and a love for the game. That's how I kind of define it. And then coachability. I mean, you look at college, you're recruiting a kid at, let's say, 17 years old, and he's probably not coming in. The average age of a freshman is 20 coming in, and the average age of a commit is 18. So that gives you another year or 2 where that player's not going to be with you. Well, that kid better get better in that 1 or 2 years before he gets there. And then at the same time, you get these kids hopefully for 4 years. So you want a kid, like we always used to say, our best recruits aren't our freshmen. Our best recruits are how much better our sophomores got from their freshman year, and how much better our juniors got from their sophomore year. That's the best recruiting you can do. So it's not just going out and finding good players. It's what you can do with them once you get on campus. And for that, coachability and the ability to learn, the want to learn, the drive to get better, those are so important. And so those are the 3 things that I think are really, really important when it comes to the scouting side of what we do.
Oh, it's awesome.
I agree with you. I agree. And how hard did you find it? And I know you said you got better as you went on, but the on ice part, is you as a guy that played and knows what he's talking about as a coach, watching them. How hard did you find it to pick out those intangible things? Obviously coachability, you can talk to the coaches and things, but whether it's talking to the kid, talking to the parents, how hard was it for you to pick out, hey, this guy's really talented, but I don't think he's gonna fit the mold that we're looking for as in the dressing room or in the classroom or the full package? Was that a tough?
Yeah, it can be, because I mean sometimes it's the luck of the draw on what game you're showing up and how that kid plays. Let's say you're playing a 60-game season. 20 games you're going to be really good. 20 games are probably going to be really bad, and 20 games are going to be somewhere in between. And I don't know, those aren't exact numbers, but maybe 10, 40, and 10, whatever it may be. So I might come into the rink and there's a kid that's got great character and awesome kid and competitive and all this kind of stuff. And maybe he just has his worst game of the year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going through it, you want to have a book of people, which is getting a little bit tougher because recruiting, the process is sped up so much where it's hard to do all the due diligence that you feel like you need to do. And that's why you have to rely on your relationships and your connections with people. Because when you find people that you trust in London or in Toronto or Boston or whatever, if there's people who is going to give you an honest evaluation of kids that they know, you have to hold those people dearly. Because if that person says, trust me, this kid is really, really good, go back and see him again next weekend or whatever, that means a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going in and evaluating, you have to trust your eyes. There's no question. And you have to see it for yourself for you to take a chance on somebody. But the word of people that you trust is really, really important. So I caution coaches too of midget teams and junior teams, be honest with the NHL scouts. Be honest with the junior scouts, the college scouts, because if you're not, it can ruin the chances of maybe a kid that's better than the kid that you were selling coming up in the next couple of years because you sold a bag of crap to somebody and then now they can't trust you. And now they're not going back to see that kid when they didn't enjoy watching them play the first time. So it's a lot of what you see with your eyes, but it's also building those relationships with valuable people that you can learn to trust in certain areas. And that's a big part of learning those, because coachability, I mean, it's tough to see that.
Yeah.
That's something you got to kind of ask the coaches about and get to know the family and things like that. So it's not an easy job.
No way,
you got to
man.
get in depth.
No.
To do it right anyway.
Yeah.
To do it right. It takes a lot of work.
For sure. Now, have you ever walked in a rink recruiting a kid, or maybe you have a couple kids on the ice on one or two teams you're looking at, you're kind of excited about them, they're playing pretty well, and out of the corner of your eye, you end up seeing some parent just going bawango over a call or losing their mind, and you're kind of putting it together that's that kid's parent, or that's that kid's, tied. Like, have you ever seen that going to the rink where someone that you're liking, that you're recruiting is the parents are off the wall, or the parents are a little bit too intense, or the parents are talking trash in the stands or anything like that? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Happens, for sure.
And
I'll give you a good story.
Yeah, go ahead. No,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, this is more for the parent out there, because a lot of times parents think, look how good my son is. He's unbelievable. And that kid might not get drafted, or may not go as high, or may not get that scholarship to an Ivy League school because, like, I don't know if I want to deal with these emails all for 4 years from this dad, or see him on seniors weekend or whatever, or on homecoming, So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one thing that we really found, because we like to dig deep, and not just with the recruits, but with the players that we have. And parents can be a silent killer, because you don't deal with the parent as a college coach. Typically, as a junior coach, you're not dealing with the parent. Midgets, you got to deal with parents, and you talk to you all the time. But even pro hockey, a parent can have a different opinion than the coach. And if that parent is all over the kid about that different opinion, even though you're not hearing it as a coach, it is severely negatively affecting their kid. So the parent thing is huge, especially in recruiting and the stories. So literally the first visit that I ever had as an assistant coach, where a kid came to Cornell, I'm sitting in the head coach's office, our head coach, Mike Schaefer, who is a straight shooter as they come. We're sitting there and we're talking with the kid and with the dad. And within 5 minutes, Coach Schaefer pretends to take a phone call and says, I have to deal with something. I'm sorry, I can't be here to talk with you more, yada, 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 yada. So I end up spending parts of the day with the kid and the dad and all that kind of stuff. And they were just there for the afternoon. But afterwards, Shape calls me and he goes, how did that go? I go, I don't know. It was kind of weird, but what's going on? Is everything okay? He's like, I can't handle that, Dad. There's not a chance we're ever recruiting that kid. So I'm out.
Wow.
And so he just kind of left me to dry. But he's like, I'm not wasting my time with this person. Like, he's aggravating me, because the dad was very pompous and one of those dads, the kid, that his trajectory wasn't going as well as it should have, and he was playing the blame game on everybody else. And those are just not the type of people that you want to have as a part of your program. So, I mean, and that's why we at Cornell, we valued visits very, very highly. So we wanted to get the parents and the kid on campus to see how they interacted with each other, because there's some times where you're talking to a kid and you ask the kid a question and the kid looks at the dad and the dad answers.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's a little bit of a red flag right here. Or, if on the other side of it, you have kids that are just extremely respectful to their parents and please and thank you and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff goes a long way. Like, one story that I love to tell is about Charlie Mcavoy. Charlie Mcavoy is a kid that we had on campus, and he was a younger kid, and we weren't going to offer him from a hockey standpoint at that juncture. But him and his dad impressed us so much on that visit. We were like, this kid is going to be a player, and we have to have this kid as a part of our program. And so we offered him on the visit, even though we weren't going to.
Wow.
And turns out Charlie Mcavoy ends up being an incredible defenseman.
Yep.
And, when he went to the national team development program, he was the 8th defenseman picked. He wasn't even supposed to be one of the stars on the team, but he ends up being a first-round draft pick. And you look at what he's doing now, and I would argue that a lot of that has to do with the way that kid was raised, based upon getting to know his family through the recruiting process.
Yeah. I think you're right, man. For anybody going down on a recruiting trip, no matter the sport, male, female, whatever the sport is, I mean, let's be honest, you're going in to meet the coach, assistant coach, and probably guidance, and they all talk afterwards. They're all going to have their own experiences with that family, right? And you're in a little bit of a microscope, and you're on their turf, you're in their bubble as the school, and it is really important. And over a course of 4, 5, 6 hours, meeting with a bunch of different people, there's going to be some red flags if you're trying to hide them. Like, hey, son, listen, we're going to be tight on this trip. Like, please and thank you. You know, there's going to be something that's going to slip along the way. Someone's going to catch it. You know what I mean? And I think that's, you know, it's really cool to talk about this stuff, because I think it is important that, you know, you want to develop. And again, that doesn't happen 20 minutes before you go on your recruiting trip. This happens when the kid's like 3 years old and you say please and thank you when you get something, or you open, you know what I mean? Like, those are all lessons I feel that for a kid like a Mcavoy, that probably didn't just happen last year, right? The year before his recruiting trip. I'm assuming he was like this, and kind of, you know, his parents were not hard on him, but strict with him, or had some, you know, good sets of rules with the kid that obviously is going to turn him into hopefully a solid young man, you know?
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is just be yourself, you know, like if you're going into even draft interviews and things like that, I mean, that's what people talk about with the combine. I mean, it's almost like the interviews are obsolete because everybody's coached so much going into it. But at the end of the day, like, just be yourself. And we get a sense of who kids are beforehand. You talk to the coaches. You might have a kid that's within your program that knows the family or knows the kid and stuff. So you get a sense, because at the end of the day, like, when you're building a team too, you can't just have 28 of the same personality. You have to have different personalities. You got to have a few goofballs. You got to have a couple people who've worn C's. You have to have, you know, people who can keep it light and people who are going to lead by example. You need everybody to be able to have a good locker room and to have a good team. So you just be yourself. That's all. That's the advice we always give to people when they go into interviews or visits or whatever. It's just, hey, be authentic, do you. And if it's a fit, then it's a fit. If it's not, then it's not. But be a good person.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah. No,
I agree. And I think that goes along too with, like, hey, if you're good, people are going to find you. And Mcavoy was obviously very talented, you know, even though he wasn't on U.S. national radar right away, whatever, and maybe wasn't totally on your radar. But if you're good, and I've heard on your podcast, you guys talk about this before too, and Dwayne and I have, like, if you're good, you don't have to move to 4 different cities in 4 years to play for 4 different teams, and they're going to find you. And Mcavoy's a perfect example of that, you know, where he was good enough and got an opportunity and took advantage of it. So it's important just to take advantage of those opportunities when you get them.
Yeah. You don't need to move away from home at 9.
Right.
Yeah.
Get an opportunity.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, you know, going to that too, I think for parents especially and young and players is being accountable to what you need to work on and what your flaws are, you know, and if it's skill set wise, it might be speed or skating or whatever it is, then work on that stuff. Cause you mentioned earlier about the blame game, and so many parents are, yeah, my son, you know, he should be in AAA, his last cut again this year. Well, there's a reason why his last cut. It wasn't because Johnny's dad golfs with the coach. It's because your son's shot's not that good, or your son, you know, can't skate that well, or he's overweight, or whatever it is, right? Like, I think there's other things that are going to come into play, obviously. And I think being accountable is a big piece that we got to start teaching our young kids at young ages, that there's a reason why things happen. And yeah, politics can play a little bit, but if you're the top 5, 6 kids in that age group or trying out for that team, you're going to pretty good odds that you're going to make that team. You know, even if you're the top 8 players, you're probably going to make that team. If you're in the bottom 5, 6, there's some politics that are going to come into play for sure, but then that's more incentive to work hard and try to get to that top 10, top 8 kind of spot and earn your spot on that team, you know?
Yeah. Well, Kevin, we talked about this last week when we were talking on the phone, like, just get better. That's the only thing that's in your control, right? It's just get better. And for you guys, it's probably similar, but one of the biggest questions that I get asked, and then I did get asked when I was coaching at Cornell, is where should my kid play? Like, what team should my kid play for? I go, well, who's the coach? That's it.
Yeah.
Who's the coach, and where is this player gonna get better the most? And the thing that kind of worries me about the way that just kind of youth hockey is today is that so many people want to fast track it and feel like they need to be on these all-star teams or move away from home, or, do these traveling models where you're not really practicing with the team, but you play on the weekends with the team and stuff like that. It's like, if you look at it from a big picture standpoint, that those kids aren't getting better. Even when you're 18, 19 years old, like what we were talking about before, you still have to get better to go play at the higher levels. That never ends. It should never stop. And so, like, the younger and younger it's getting, and now being a youth hockey director, I'm really, really seeing how crazy it gets at even the youngest of ages. Like, we got teams from out of town recruiting our kids that are like 13, 14 years old. And it's just like, man, because at the end of the day too, like, development and getting better, like, I would say maybe 50% of that is what happens on the ice. The other 50% of that is what happens in your home with your parents, and creating good life habits and being the accountability. Like, that's taught at home. That's not taught at the rink. That's revealed at the rink.
Yeah.
And so the fact that parents want to send their kids away at such a young age to go live in a dorm or to go live with a family that they've never met, it's like, that's like, who's going to teach your kid better? A 21-year-old dorm director or you, when it comes to the crazy crap that life is going to throw our way? I don't know. It's a cautionary tale, but it's something that, like, I feel like we need to talk about more and more and more, because the craziness is just, it feels like it's getting exponentially bigger. But these things are really, really important. At the end of the day, we all end up in beer league, right?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
It's the stuff that you learn along the way that's going to help you. Like, you'll be a hockey player if you're lucky until you're 23, 24 years old, and then you got a whole life to live. So what have you learned through the game that doesn't even have anything to do with the game that's going to help you in life down the road? And we're losing that, and it worries me.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure you've heard this term before, Toph, but you got parents who are like, oh, well, I feel like my kid's going to miss the boat. And I've never seen a boat in hockey, but there's this perception that if the kid's not moving to Boston to play for the best team there, or Toronto to play for the best team there, that they're going to miss this boat that's going to take them to, I'm assuming, the NHL, right? And they're 13, 14 years old. And I think that's something where parents got to kind of I would tell parents, like, put horse blinders on and worry about your kid. Don't worry about what this guy's doing or that girl's doing or whoever. Just worry about your child. Worry about what they got to get better at. Maybe their sleep habits are terrible, which is a big, big thing with young kids right now, especially that 13, 14, 15. I don't think COVID's helped this out at all, because video games are running rampant. There's no getting up for school. So you got sleep patterns all messed up. Well, the kid's moody. Well, let's tighten up the nutrition a little bit. Let's tighten up the sleep patterns, number one. But let's work to, like, let's make our kids the best that they can be in the environment they're in now, to get them ready to go move away or go take on those next obstacles. But you're right, man. So many parents are willing to move their kids away at 13, 14, 15, 16, and they're not ready for it. And then, to your point on your first year junior, like, man, maybe I shouldn't have played junior my first year. It might not have been the best decision, looking back on it. And I'm sure if your daughter has an opportunity to go away for gymnastics or hockey or figure skating or whatever that is, I'm sure you're going to be looking at it twice, saying, is she ready? Is she mature enough? Is she checking these boxes before I move her into a billet family, or I move her away an hour or two to go pursue her dream? Not that I'm all for my kids moving away, hopefully soon. No, I'm kidding. But, I'm all for my kids moving away, but I want to make sure that they're ready. I had great experiences moving away. I played my midget, and then I went away at 17 to play junior, which I was ready. I was fine. But I really think, to your point, I think a lot of parents are so worried about them missing this boat that they're making decisions that aren't what's best for the kid, and it's going to hurt them in the long run, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the FOMO is alive and real. I think it's getting into the youth hockey game now and stuff. I mean, it really is a huge, huge issue. That it's the boat. Like, people think they're going to miss the boat if they're not on this exposure team or don't get to this tournament or whatever, don't have the right advisor or agent. There's so much other stuff, like just complete noise, that just takes away from the one thing that is really, really important. And that's, I tell people this all the time. Like, I never recruited a kid to Cornell that wasn't a really, really good hockey player.
Right.
that was the most important thing. They had to be really, really good at hockey.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and I recruited kids. We had a kid from Florida on our team. We had a kid from British Columbia on our team. We had a kid from Arizona on our, like, we'll find you. We spend our recruiting budgets are very, very large. Our networks are very, very big in Ontario. If I hear of a kid or see a kid, there's probably 10 people I can call right off the top of my head to get information on that person. And it's the fear of missing out, unfortunately. And the thing that's tough is, I don't know how it is up by you guys, but especially down here in the States, like that fear of missing out, like it's getting younger and younger and younger every year, with how professionalized it's becoming at younger ages and how much money is involved. So, I like to feel like kind of like guys like us are fighting against the machine, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's necessary. I mean, I think you got to have both sides of it, because at the end of the day, like the entrepreneurship in hockey, I mean, there's good people in hockey that run academies, and there's good people in hockey that run, clinics in the summer and things like that. So you don't want to say that stuff is all garbage, and because there's a lot of really good people that are really good coaches that do a really good job, but there's got to be a back and forth, and there has to be a little bit of a balance. And I feel like that balance is shifting a little bit more to the craziness right now than it really needs to be.
I couldn't agree more, man. And the younger ages, like even right now through this whole pandemic, no one's been on the ice for 3 months, and now we're getting back into it, and we had some pro guys who wanted to get back on the ice, obviously for the return to play, things like that. But I mean, we're getting messages from 8, 9-year-old parents, like parents of kids that are 8, 9 years old, like just chomping at the bit to get back on the ice. And as a parent, I've got a 7-year-old or 8-year-old at home, and I'm like, they don't need to be on the ice. Like, it's not going to hurt them if they're not on the ice right now. My son learned how to skateboard through this pandemic. It was awesome. Like, that's wicked. Like, do other things. Go do other sports. They're not sitting on the couch all day playing video games. They're going to be fine. But you're right. Like, it's getting younger and younger where, these parents of players that are 7, 8, 9, 10, they're freaking out right now because, everyone's in the same boat. And even if they're not, man, I think having a Sunday dinner instead of going to do that skill session on Sunday night, I think is way more important for a family, in that kid's hockey future, is stay at home, have dinner with each other, talk about how the day was. What'd you like about the weekend? How was your day at school today? Whatever that is, rather than rushing out of the house to go do another skill session or go do a shooting session or whatever that is. Right. And I think we got to get back to that a little bit, and I put it on us as young parents, I think in the last 10, 15 years of, maybe just trying to keep up a little bit too much, maybe just trying to provide for our kids more than what we had, and almost going maybe a little bit over top of that hill and starting to fall down the other side a little bit. So I think we do have to pull back a little bit. I think it's super important, but we see it all the time, Kev, with just parents that are trying to get, push too much.
Totally. And Topher said this earlier, like, where is one of the worst things that's breeding this terrible idea is social media. I mean, some parents have no idea, their kids have no idea they haven't been on the ice for 3 months. And the dad's like, he's fine. But all of a sudden he sees 3 of his buddies posting, parents posting that they're driving 2 hours away because some rinks illegally open right now, and they're doing a skill session out there, and they're like, whoa, we better do that. We don't know when tryouts are, but we better get on there. So I can't agree with what you said before enough about social media is a killer, and even down to what you said about like young, like players, whether you should play junior, whether you should play minor hockey. They're seeing what you see on SportsCenter, what you see on social on NHL.com, and you're seeing the less than 1% of those highest draft pick kids that are leaving home early or going to play junior right away. That's just such a small percentage. For the big bulk of the players, stay at home an extra year, develop, where you are under your parents' roof and under a good coach, like you said, and that's going to go. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. So that's going to keep you playing at 23, 24 instead of maybe fizzling out at 21. But I just think the social media is a crazy, crazy killer. I think it doesn't matter which way you look at it.
Well, it's funny because a lot of the times we talk about social media from the kids' standpoint, with the Instagram and the kids that are coming up. But I haven't done a ton of stuff on Facebook, but with our company, we just decided in the last few months or so to invest a little bit more time on doing some stuff on Facebook and things. And that FOMO and that comparative culture is probably worse for the parents on Facebook than it is for the kids on whatever they're on, Instagram, Snapchat, all that kind of stuff. Because I feel like Facebook is a breeding ground for bragging about your children. And look, I'll say this. It's great to be proud of your kids. And it's totally, there's nothing wrong with, my son or my daughter did this thing and putting it up on Facebook I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So that's not the issue. The issue is that everybody's doing it. And so now if you're a parent and you're seeing all these other parents posting all this stuff about their kids and all this kind of thing, you see your kid and they're like, oh, well, he's only done one thing that's Facebook noteworthy in the last month or whatever. And now you feel like my kid's, not as good as all the other kids. And so I need to be doing, or my kid needs to be doing more and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, you see it with the parents and it's just like, hey, like just get off that stuff. Like it doesn't matter. Like that's not real life. Like, and the example I use with the kids that I talk to, so I have a 3-year-old and a 10-month-old at home. And so I say, okay, it usually takes me about 2 minutes to get a good picture of my 3-year-old because she's nuts. Yeah. She's high energy. She wants to hold the phone. She's looking over here, looking over there, wherever. So for 1:59 of that 2 minutes, she's a legitimate disaster. But then for that 1 second, she smiles and she's looking at the phone. And I snap that. And what goes up on social media? The 1 second of the 2 minutes that looks like it's awesome. So people think, oh, your daughter's so well behaved and she's so cute. What a little angel. And I was like, well, if you only saw the 1:59 before that, you'd have a little bit of a different opinion. But it's the same thing. Like, kids and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, great things happen. It's good to put that up there, but that's not like there's a lot of struggle. Everybody, like, no accomplishment has ever come without struggle. But nobody ever sees the struggle, so nobody ever thinks that anybody else struggles. They only see their own. So that comparison culture that happens with the kids and happens with the parents, especially now, I'm starting to learn, holy crap, is that an issue? It's tough to feel good about yourself. It's tough to feel good about your kid when at the end of the day, like, things are great.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? It's funny though, man. Like I've gone through what you're going through, obviously, and I'm still a rookie parent. My kids are young, but and Kev can attest to this because he's been to barbecues with me before, but I'm very, very honest about how crappy it is to have children. Like I love my kids and it's the best. Like they're awesome, but it's a grind, man. Especially like you got a 10-month-old, you're just kind of getting out of that, like starting to walk probably or close to it. Like it gets better and better and better. Don't get me.
When do your wife's due, right?
Yeah, I'm just coming up on a month to the due date, like in a couple days. So I'm getting there.
There you go.
Kevin's earfuls.
Enjoy the freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys are gonna keep talking, if you guys keep talking about this, I'm out of here. I'm getting.
But
sorry, go ahead.
No. But what I'm getting at is like I think it's important to have honest conversations about being a parent's hard, man. Whether your kid's 10 months old or 2 years old or 7 years old, like it's not easy, and it's not. Yeah, we love our kids, but man, do we want to like lock them in a closet sometimes? 100%. Like, are there times where you just want to walk away from the situation and be like, man, I'm done. Give me 10 minutes. Like, yes. And that's normal. But a lot of times, you talk to buddies like, oh, best day of my life, had my child. Oh man, how are things going through pandemic? Like unbelievable. No, it's not. Like I got to teach my kids English. I got to teach my kids math. Like it's brutal. You're grinding it out every day trying to do this stuff. Like I'd rather that conversation than like rainbows and butterflies. And I know they're all fake. Like I want to know, like, tell me the real stuff. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. There's good minutes, good hours all day with the kids. It's awesome, but there's some terrible times. But we don't, to your point on Facebook or social media, no one puts a picture of them about to strangle their child or give their kid a little whack in the butt. No one posts that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's important to have those conversations, whether it's talking about children or whether it's talking about hockey or whatever that is, but being honest about it. And like, it's a grind, man. Life is a grind, and it's all on how you face things and how you deal with things and how you do it. But at the end of the day, it's not easy, and you're gonna have some adversity. And how do you overcome that stuff? And I'm with you on that. I just think it's so important to be open and honest about stuff and have those real conversations, because they're not easy to have. But man, it makes you feel better when you know that my neighbor's dealing with the same thing, or my buddy down the street's dealing with the same thing.
Yeah. No, I think there's no question. I mean, and I'm a rookie parent, as you call it, and so I still have a lot to learn. But I think one of the biggest things, you read the books and you look at the stories of the people that have gone on to do great things, it never came without struggle. So the more we as parents take that struggle away or try to shield our kids from the struggle, the bigger disservice we are giving our kids. Like, no multi-billion-dollar company started out of thin air. No, it happened because probably the first 2 or 3 businesses that person tried failed, and then they learned, and then they got better, and then they figured it out eventually, and they had to grind it. I mean, you look at one of the best stats that I love to share with kids is that a couple seasons ago, the season when Pittsburgh played against Nashville in the Stanley Cup Finals and Pittsburgh ended up winning, there's a stat. So 88% of the players that played in the NHL that year spent time in the AHL. So almost 9 out of every 10 players that played in the NHL, the top league in the world, at some point were told you're not good enough, right? So go get better before you go ride the bus, go get better, go make significantly less money before you're able to get back here. And for me, like it was such like a aha moment, because you see the YouTube and you see the Sports Center highlights and you see these really, really accomplished, skilled players doing these amazing things, but you don't see like Sidney Crosby spent a year and a half in a dark room from a concussion. And then he comes out better than he was even before, wins Stanley Cups and Olympic gold medals and MVPs and all this kind of stuff. You know, I mean, there's so many stories of, even you look at like the teams that have won championships. They didn't win championships just like that. There were a lot of years of figuring it out and struggling and all that kind of stuff. You look at the Last Dance and Michael Jordan and the Bulls, like getting their butts kicked by the Detroit Pistons before they eventually figured it out. Like that struggle is a necessary part of the process as teams, as individuals. And so again, like going back to as a parent, even with a 3-year-old, there's times where like I see my daughter, she's struggling with something and your first instinct is like, oh, I got to help. But then it's like, wait a second, let him figure it out. Yeah. And then eventually she figures it out and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Totally, yeah. And
so it's like kind of like being the bumpers for him, but not rolling the ball down the alley kind of thing. And you know, I don't, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right or I'm wrong, but you look at it again, 90% of the players playing at the NHL like got cut at some point in their career and told they weren't good enough and go get better before you get back here. And I just think that's such an amazing statistic. That's just kind of like a microcosm of what's necessary to achieve really, really good things.
Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah. And that's a great stat actually, especially to share with young kids. Cause yeah, you gotta, you know, like you said, just gotta get better, man. Just keep getting better. And I think all 3 of us obviously are, all very, very tall for our age, but maybe a little undersized in the hockey world. But you know, I mean, I'm sure we've all heard it. I know I have, but you're too small. Like you're not going to play like you know, when I was young in minor hockey, I played like back, you know, obviously I'm over 40. So it was a while ago, but you're too small. Like you're too small to play college or you're too small to play like junior, you know what I mean? And that was fuel for me. Like that was a real fuel for me to say, you know what, call it small man syndrome, call it chip on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it. But I was like, screw you. Like, I'm going to show you that I can play. Right. And I had parents that were very liberal. Like, you know, you do you, if that's what you want to do, sure. No problem. They weren't pushing me to play hockey. They didn't care if I played junior or college or anything like that. They just, you know, and I think that it was really important to go through those little bit of, you know, getting cut from a team and coming home and not having your mom and dad be like, it's okay. It's politics. He was like, no, you got to get better, man. You got to, if you want to make the team next year, then you got to practice. You know, and okay. And they didn't have to tell me twice or once. I already knew what I had to do. I knew what I wasn't good at. Right. So I think it, to your point, exactly. And starting at 3 years old to me is like, that's the foundation, man. Like, at 10 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, like that's the foundation. And you know, if you're not doing stuff, if you're not helicoptering, if you're not making sure there's bumper pads on every little piece of thing that the kids are around, that's going to translate into bigger and better things as they're getting older. You know what I mean? And I think that's really, really important to let your kids fail, let them fall off their bike, let them, whatever that is. And, you know, they're going to be okay. We've all done it. And, you know, we kind of forget, right? Like how we grew up and how we've done okay. We all have our, you know, we've got our mind with us. We've all doing okay. We're making a living. We forget that. And then we want to parent so differently than how we were brought up. And it's, is it helping or hurting? Right. So.
Yeah. Well, think about it too, Dwayne. Like, you're a business owner now, really successful business. And had you not had little man syndrome and had to learn how to persevere and work and kind of over exceed expectations, like your business wouldn't be where it is today. So it just goes back to it. Like, the things that you're learning along the journey are going to help you or hurt you
yeah.
Once your hockey career is over. So again, like, forget about the hockey and the statistic about making the NHL. Like, when you learn how to struggle and get through that and understand how important that is to the process, like that's a life thing. That's going to help you as a parent. That's going to help you as a business owner, as an employee, an employer, whatever way your life ends up going at the end of the day. I mean, those things are, and then that's why sports are so important. And that's why we have to continue to keep digging in on teaching these things, these fundamental principles of being a good person and perseverance and all this kind of stuff. Like that's our biggest job as coaches. That's our most important job. It's not to make sure that Johnny makes, the OHL draft or Johnny makes college hockey or pro hockey. Like that should be a byproduct of all the things that we're instilling in them. That's something we can't take lightly. And that's something I think parents, they gotta, again, when it goes choosing the environment that you want your kids to be a part of, like that's a big deal. You don't want your kid to be a part of an environment where he's told he's really, really good all the time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
It's false advertising because none of us are that good. And so, it's something that's, I love to talk about. It's something that's really, really important, and you guys are passionate about it too. And I think it's amazing.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too long, but I got a couple other questions I wanted to ask you. One of them was, if you look at your hockey career through probably minor hockey to junior to college, so let's say 10, 12 years old plus, was there any one year in there that kind of helped formulate who you were as a player? And even if you look at it as a business owner for yourself now, it was obviously done very well. And is there any one year hockey-wise that maybe it was a coach, maybe it was Will Nickel, maybe it was a situation that helped you kind of like overcome obstacles, overcome that? Because, I mean, if anyone is going to start their own business or go out on their own and do their own thing, you're going to have obstacles. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have different things. You're going to get stressed out about stuff. And how you deal with it, I think, is how you're going to be able to come out of it. But can you recall, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Kevy, so you got to think about this for a sec. But is there any one year that, or any one situation that maybe you got into that you're like, man, I hated it at the time, or I hated this person at the time, but man, I learned a lot from that, or I really got a lot out of that helped kind of structure some of the things in my life a little bit better?
Yeah, I think we've talked about, I would say there's probably two, and we talked about them both already, but that year that I tore my ACL, I think I tell people all the time it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Looking at it from a big picture standpoint, because, and I thank God that I have really, really awesome parents, because they did not let me sulk. They were like, they're like very big people, and they're turning any negative into a positive. And so it's like, all right, like now you're going to miss the game, and you're really like, you love the game right now, but you're really going to love the game when you get back and you're able to play again. And now you're going to build mental toughness and all that kind of stuff. So like that experience is probably one of those. And the other one was, my freshman year at Cornell. I really got to understand how to build a culture and how important people are to what you're doing. Because I mean, my teammates and coaches and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it was a magical year. Everybody got along. Everybody was a great person. And it just kind of shaped a lot of what I think about how to build teams and how important the people side of the business is.
It's awesome, man. I like it. Kevin, what about you? Can you think of a moment like that, or a moment?
Yeah, for sure. My first year at junior, I'll never forget it. I moved away a couple hours, for junior B team that said I was going to play, and it was going to be great. And then I ended up playing like half the year junior C. They were like, oh, we got these guys. A couple guys from the OHL came back, and I, it's hard. Like you're wearing your first year away, you're that guy that moved away, and you're not a big deal, but it was a big thing. And all of a sudden you're wearing a different team jacket for half of it. And I remember being like, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to, fold up my tent here, or am I going to, and everyone's saying, oh, you're not big enough. That's why. And for me, it was like that personal, like, no, I'm going to do this. And sure enough, next year I was able to be a impact player. And I know it was just junior B, but it was a big thing for me to just prove to myself and everybody that I didn't get the opportunity this year. And I was able to come back and still have a good career, still play college, still keep a career in hockey, even though that seemed like the end of the road for me. Like you didn't make it, you didn't make it. And I don't know why I know it was a bit of a confusing answer, but it was a big thing for me to be able to bounce back from that, such a high from moving away and making junior B to like, oh no, now I'm living away playing junior C, and just being able to battle through that year and still kind of keep a career of it. So yeah, I never forgot that year. That was a big one for me.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Mine was,
do you have one?
Yeah, mine was when my freshman year of college, I played like 11 games. I played half the games. I was healthy scratched like every second game. It was brutal. And I was going to transfer out. I was losing my mind. My father got sick that year. So right at the start of the year, and he was kind of like, probably like a lot of our dads, you call him after games. Hey, how'd the game go? Hey, it went well. And so he got sick. So I kind of lost him. And so it was just a tough year all around. My mom was a rock, and she was like, kept it together. I was going to quit school and go home and work. My parents were both self-employed, so my dad didn't have income coming in. My sister was still at home. My brother moved away. I was going to come back, and my mom's like, there's no way you're staying down there. You're not leaving. Like, you got a scholarship. You stay down there, go to school, finish it up. So, but that year I hated my coach, hated going to the rink. Like, you get to that point, you're just kind of, I was just mad. Every single game that year that I sat out, I went to the coach's office before the game, knocked on the door. And by the end, it was just like my routine. Hey, coach, what do I need to do to get back in the lineup? And he gave me some, like, and you're a coach, like, you've coached, Toph, so you get this, just like, oh my God, he's here again. Like, keep working on your shot. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm, as an older guy and a coach, I get it. I'm like, okay. But I did it and I didn't do it because I wanted an answer. I did it because I wanted to know I want to play. And I remember at the end of the year, one of my buddies comes out of the locker room after the game. He's like, Blazer, what'd you say to coach, man? Like, this is after pregame talk or whatever. I'm like, I just asked him why I didn't play. It's like, he came in, he started like giving it to all the boys. Like, there's a guy sitting out there who wants it more than all you guys. And like, kind of like which was meant something to me, obviously. But long story short, I look back on that year and it was probably the best thing ever, because in hockey, which I loved my whole life, I hit rock bottom. I was going to shut her down. I was done. And I came back with a new kind of rejuvenated for the game. But I look back on it now and I was like, I wasn't that good. Like, I had a lot of stuff to work on. I wasn't that good of a player. I thought I was probably better than I was, like we all did as cocky freshmen coming out of junior. It was a big deal in junior. And then you go there and I'm like, why am I not playing? So I grew a lot as a player and a person after that year. Once I reflected on it, I'm like, that was the biggest year of my life that strengthened me the hardest as far as hockey, family, all that stuff. And I attest that year a lot to, like, being able to just hit kind of your own rock bottom. Not that I was in a rock bottom, but, in a bad spot and coming out of it and then, coming through it. So I think, it sounds like for all of us, there was one important point in our lives where something bad happened. And let's be honest, we all know buddies of ours that could have went down or could have went up with it. And some of our buddies would have been like, tore my ACL. I'm riding the bike. As soon as I get on the bike, I'm riding that bike. I'm going to get my legs back. And we have some buddies that would have been like, sweet, video games for 6 months. I'm unbelievable, So all on how you deal with it, right? And that supporting cast you have around you to help you get through it. But obviously it's kind of turn bad situations into good ones, and hopefully it all works out for the best, And the last thing I'll ask you, Toph, I'll start with you, Kevy, this time. But who's one person or two people, doesn't matter. But and for Toph, you can't say Will again. You got to say somebody else. But somebody that's kind of impacted your hockey or your career in a positive way. But somebody that you think about every once in a while, and you're like, man, like, yeah, that's somebody that really had an impact. Because I think a lot of times coaches coach minor hockey or college hockey or recruit or do skill development, and you may not realize what kind of an impact you have on that person's life, right? I'm not saying this has to be the person that you guys are thinking about, but everyone's had little impacts on all of us throughout our lives. But is there somebody or two people that stand out in your mind that, man, like they did have a little bit of like an unsung hero in my life where they did mean a lot to me, and they did kind of mentor me a little bit?
Yeah, you know what, Topher? I'm gonna think about this one. I want Topher to go first. I need a second on this one. I'm letting him go. I'm putting you on the hot seat here.
That's all right. I mean, I think the obvious one for many of us is probably our parents. Mm-hmm. I think I almost think that's like the easy answer to say, because I think I had fantastic parents. I mean, both my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family were hockey people. My mom, actually, this is kind of funny, and I give my dad crap about this, but my mom's brother and my dad were college hockey teammates, and that's how my dad met my mom. So
nice.
I give my dad crap because I'm like, you started dating your teammate's sister? Like, that's not right. But I'm very happy, obviously, that it happened. But I had a youth coach that I had him for 3 years, and you go back to kind of like some of the tough stuff. So I had always played up growing up, a birth year, and then I think it was maybe my Pee Wee major year, I got cut from that team, and I didn't have a place to play. And the only place that had an opening at the time was a level below, and with this crazy Russian coach that nobody's ever heard of. And so, but it was literally the only AAA team that I could play for. So I ended up being a part of his team. And from a hockey standpoint, I probably learned more from him in those 3 years than any other coach that I ever had. And it was so different. And I model a lot of the stuff that I do in youth hockey today after him. And just, no, not allowed to dump the puck in. We played so many games, like so much keep away in practice. Like it just, from a hockey sense standpoint, from a skill development standpoint, I owe a lot of what I have as a player and as a coach to him. So a lot of different stories that we can get into, but for the most part, like, he was crazy Russian coach. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. No, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go next. I'll give you more time, Kevy. But
All right.
for me, it was a high school teacher. So I was in grade 9, and I was chunky. Like, I was kind of like, I had like little boobs. I used to swim with my shirt on and stuff like that. And, and you're in grade 9, you're kind of intimidated. You're, the first year of high school, and baggy sweaters. Like, I probably still would not wear the sweaters I wore in high school because they're too big. Like, it was just like, that was a style, but it was just whatever. And I met this gym teacher that was a kind of friend of my dad's they went to high school together, whatever. And he would run with us and he would do everything with us. So I started getting more into running and fitness and things like that. And I ended up kind of turning my body shape around within that year or 2 years. But he was a guy who really impacted my life in a different way on the fitness side of it. And I always looked at him like, when you're young, when you're grade 9, you think he's like, 55. He was probably like 40, right? But I'm like, when I'm that age and I have kids, like, I want to be able to run with my kids. I want to be able to play basketball with my kids. I want to be able to throw a ball with my kids and go swimming. And that was one thing that I've really, not molded, but one thing I've really kept as one of my pillars in my life, that I want to always be in good enough shape that I'm not going to like bend over, walk up the stairs and be huffing and puffing and sweating. Like, I want to be able to wheel around my kids and have some fun with my kids and stuff. And that, so he's been a huge impact on the fitness side of my life, as far as just staying in somewhat relevant shape in order to be able to long-term live, obviously, but then, spend time and be able to kind of be an active father and stuff like that. But he was a massive, massive reason why I got so into like getting in shape and things like that when I played. And I think that was a big reason why I played probably longer than I probably should have at being an undersized kid from Sudbury, Ontario. I think I squeezed a lot of hockey out of my body. And that one of the reasons I think was because I was fit, and I owe a lot of that to him. So he's my guy.
That's awesome. Now, listen, I know Topher's got another call he's got to get to in 2 minutes. Sorry. So I'm going to give you a 20-second version. And I love what Topher said. This is why I kind of passed. I was like, my initial answer, you almost feel guilty as your parents. And that's almost where I was like, there's got to be someone else who influenced me more than my parents. I'm like, there isn't, whether that's good or bad. I'm like, no, it was my parents. And I was lucky enough to be coached by my dad, minor hockey a lot, even in junior for a couple of years. But both of them are, just two of the harder working players I know or people I know. And I model my playing career and now my personal life and professional life after that. So that is the easy answer, but I'm going to go with it. And,
love it.
And no, I feel proud of that. So,
right.
But yeah, that's it.
Well, listen, Toph, man, I really appreciate it, buddy. We could chat for hours. But man, I really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll get to do maybe a part 2 of this once we get out of the COVID and get back to kind of somewhat normalcy, whatever that's going to look like on the other side. But best of luck with everything. And where can people find you if they want to look up your articles and your blog posts and your podcasts and all the good stuff you guys have on your site? Where can people find you?
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's thehockeythinktank.com is the website. And then, we have the Hockey Think Tank podcast with myself and my cousin Jeff. He played 10 years pro. And we just get some people on and shoot the breeze about hockey and hockey development and all that kind of stuff. But this is the kind of stuff that I live for, just being able to talk hockey with you guys. And you guys are doing a fantastic job up there, and I'm glad we were able to connect. So thanks for all that you're doing, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future. Yeah,
and this is kind of a bit of a new relationship for us, and hopefully something that we can do, maybe some collabs together, get together and do some stuff for sure, because there's a lot of similarities to what you do and what we do, and I love the podcast, so keep it up. It's been great. But yeah, best of luck with everything, buddy.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, man.
To kind of raise that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.